Case Western Reserve University's Institute for the Science of Origins proudly presents the Origins Science Scholars Program. The Institute advances the scientific understanding and application of the origins and evolution of human and natural systems. The Origins Science Scholars Lectures are presented with the assistance of Case Western Reserve University's Siegel Lifelong Learning Program, College of Arts and Sciences, and MediaVision. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce Dr. Isaiah Nengo, Associate Director at the Turkana Basin Institute, Research Assistant Professor at Stony Brook University, and I'm pleased to say a Fellow of the Institute for the Science of Origins. He is a Principal Investigator of the Turkana Miocene Project and speaks on a wide variety of scientific and popular topics, ranging from human evolution to the science and anti-science of race. Tonight, he will talk to us about Kenya's rich evidence for human origins, past, present, and future. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Isaiah Nengo.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Patricia, for the invitation. And thanks to everybody who's tuned in. It's a wonderful opportunity to see you again, even though we are not together physically, but I can feel your presence. So thanks for being here. And when I was a kid, I always loved space and time travel. I had imagined that when I grew up, I was going to become an astronaut. And I was greatly disappointed when I grew up to find out that Kenya did not have a space program. But instead, I was pleased to discover that we did have a time travel program, that you could actually travel back in time through the fossil record. And so I've lived my dream in that I actually managed to become a paleontologist. And what I would like to do for you today, or for us to do today, is to discuss with you as a Kenyan and as the Director for Research and Science of the Turkana Basin. So instead of discussing my research directly, what I want to do is to step back and sort of take a biopic view, a biopic look at the fossil evidence that has come from Kenya, that without which I believe the story of human evolution would be impossible to tell. So most of the work I'm going to talk about is not my work, and most of it is going to be from an historical perspective, historical perspective, rather than deep science. Now, we know that Darwin gave us the first good argument that convinced anybody who was worth convincing that we evolved. But the one place that a lot of people used to have problems with was the fact that, one, there was no evidence, and two, if there was evidence, there was no evidence to demonstrate that humans evolved. And so, as long as you have evidence for insects and dinosaurs evolving, that's fine. But if we leave humans out, I think that we've not made a convincing evidence that evolution is a fact. But once you accept that humans evolved, then you have to accept the whole enchilada. And so, from the very beginning, the story of human evolution has been the story of ape evolution. You cannot demonstrate through the fossil record that humans have evolved without also demonstrating that apes have evolved from the same place, right? So if you have these two branches that are supposed to be coming from the same common ancestor, or like two rivers, tributaries that have the same source, then you have to be able to demonstrate that the fossil record for the evolution of humans and the fossil record for the evolution of the apes has to be in the same place. So the story of human evolution has always been the story of ape evolution. The search for human evolution requires that you also search for ape fossils. And you can see this in Darwin's prediction in 1871 in The Descent of Man, where he hypothesized that the most likely place where you're going to find the evidence for both human evolution and ape evolution would have to be the African continent. But of course, people did not take, the paleontologists at that time did not take Darwin seriously. And instead, the focus was for the search for the evidence in other places. Now, to demonstrate how human evolution and ape evolution are tied at the hip, there is an example that I'm going to discuss, but before I do that, let me just talk briefly about the earliest evidence for human evolution. Actually, in the fossil record was evidence from Germany and later on from France of Neanderthal fossils. So they were the first historically to have been discovered in the fossil record. And that gave people their thinking, that led people to think that, it has to be Europe that humans evolved from, or rather Europe was the place of the origin of humanity. Now, to demonstrate to you that the story of human evolution are tied at the hip, there was the famous discovery, or the infamous discovery, of what we now call the Piltdown Man, where the British scientists, not to be left out of the game, were led to believe that there was the oldest evidence, the evidence for the oldest fossil was actually in England, from a place called Piltdown, and the village of Sussex in England. And as we may or may not know, what somebody actually did was perpetrate a hoax by taking, sorry, I'm going to skip that, they're taking a human cranium and a jaw of an orangutan. So in order to outdo the the Piltdown, you had to show that something that you found was even more ape-like. You know, it had human features, but it was more ape-like. So that's the tie between the human and ape evolution. And it had to be an ape jaw and a human skull that were put together to claim that here is the missing link. Now, of course, we know that eventually that Africa is a place where the majority of the evidence now we know comes from, but it took time. And what I want to do is to walk you through the stages. It's going to be like a symphony in 3 parts. In the first part, we're going to look at the period before the independence in Africa, and some of the key work and some of the I'm going to highlight. This is not going to be an exhaustive talk about every single fossil that was found or every single important fossil, but just to highlight some of the key fossils that were found in this time period. And then the second period will move into the period after independence and all the way to the period when TBI was established around the year 2006. And then the last part will look at the work that is ongoing since the founding of TBI, and particularly what we hope to do, or some of the plans that we have for African paleontology, Kenyan paleontology in this area in the future. So let's start by what was going on in this period before independence. And as you can imagine, Africa is a vast continent, and looking for fossil or trying to find a fossil in this place would have been the most good. I mean, I don't have words for it. This is an incredibly difficult task. I mean, where should you begin? Where can you begin? And we know that a lot of it is through sheer luck. And we all know about the story of the Tong Child, where there were a group of quarrymen mining for limestone at the quarry of Tong. Blasting away, they recovered a cranium and an endocast, and they recognized that there was something special about this specimen that they found. They took it to Raymond Datt, who they knew dealt in such matters. Raymond Datt recognized it as a highly human fossil, get it published in Nature, and he was summarily dismissed. Nobody paid attention to him. They said all he'd found was an ape. It wasn't a human. Now, I just want to let people know that the discovery of early human fossils in South Africa in 1925 is well noted. But a lot of people don't realize that, as I've said, that the search for human fossils and the search for apes have gone hand in hand, is that the very first fossil of apes in Africa were actually found in Kenya in 1925, at about the same time as the tongue child. And this again was accidental at a site called Songo, which I actually eventually ended up working in together with Patricia. It was a very fast site to work at. And the farmer who owned the land, his name was Gordon, actually was the first person to discover ape fossils, which he then took to what was then known as the Corridon Museum in Nairobi, and they were later described by Tyndall Hopwood, and he used them to name the species that we then came to be called proconsul, or the genus that then came to be called proconsul. And there were 3 species. We've now split them, and some are now in a different genus that we now call Akembo. So the search for early human ape fossils in Kenya actually goes all the way back to 1925, rivaling the discovery of the tongue child in South Africa. Now, there's one Kenyan who stands head and shoulders above everybody else in really shining the spotlight on Kenya as the place to look for human origins, rather East Africa in general to look for human origins. We all know of the great work, the fantastic work that first Lewis and then joined by Mary Leakey did in Tanzania, especially in Olduvai Gorge. Is that one thing we did not realize is that they also did a lot of work in Kenya, and they're not famous in Kenya for the discovery of human fossils, but rather for the discovery of ape fossils. And so here's Mary Leakey in Tanzania in Olduvai Gorge, Raymond Dapp and Louis Leakey. And there's one more person that I want to mention, and that is Hezlon Mukiri. Hezlon Mukiri was Richard and Mary's right-hand man. In fact, he started working with Louis Leakey before Mary Leakey joined in. And in one of her biography, Mary Leakey describes how Hezlon was a person of few words, and he was, if he didn't accept you, forget it. You're not going to work with Louis Leakey. He grew up with Louis. They went through traditional ceremonies of initiation and adulthood together. So we're very close. And he was a fantastic fossil finder and also very, very good at organizing and managing field expeditions. So he was of Louis Leakey and Mary Leakey's right-hand man, if you like. So I just wanted to highlight his name so we don't forget that he played a very important role in the discovery of fossils, both in Kenya and Tanzania. So many people do not know that one of the most important fossils that Mary found was an ape skull of then was called Proconsul africanus. Now we call it Akembo africanus. The specimen ended up at the British Museum. The British didn't want to return it. And it took many years and many struggles, and actually caused a falling out between Richard and Louis. But eventually we did get the specimen back. Another important ape fossil that Mary found was of a skeleton from a site called Ruzinga, the same place where that skull comes from. It is a Sabodao. KNMRU 2036 is the museum number. It's a spectacular fossil preserving a good part of the skeleton. The pelvis is missing. Most of the vertebral column is missing, but a good chunk of the specimen is preserved. And one of the most striking things about it is that we now know that they did not have a tail, but their arms and legs were about the same length, which is more typical of what you see in monkeys. And so that tells us that this is a very, very early ape. Funnily enough, the specimen where this comes from, this specimen came from a plug at this place, which we later discovered was actually a remnant of a trunk of a tree, which was hollow and had been used by carnivores to maybe as a lair to store, drop in their kills. And in the process, they end up accumulating a number of skeletons of this particular genus of Akembo africanus. And Alan Walker and team mined block of the specimens, brought it back to the museum, and that ended up in the recovery of at least 15 individuals of proconsul africanus at various ages and size. And the last thing that the leakage did that I think was very, very critical in terms of turning the light in East Africa and Kenya was dating. It was 1961 that the fossils in Olduvai Gorge got dated, and Ganis Kati sends this letter, and he describes to Leakey that I've just dated your Olduvai man, and he's old, old, old. That's 1.6. And that's the first time that we actually had a number. And I joined in 1985. I was at an island called Mfangano with Alan Walker, with Alan Walker's team. And I participated in the discovery of the first complete pelvis of an African ape.
So Isaiah, where's that island?
The island is in Lake Victoria. Both Rusinga and Mfangano Island are in Lake Victoria in Western Kenya.
So that island's been an island for a very long time?
It's been an island, I'm trying to, I think the lake has been there since the Pleistocene. So probably the island has been there that long.
Great. I have a question here from Bernice Climate. Was there competition between Kenya and Tanzania in sharing these findings, and did that hold up the discovery?
When Louis and Mary started working in Olduvai Gorge, there was a good museum in Kenya, but there wasn't, there was, let's say, a better museum facilities in Kenya than there was in Tanzania. So initially, all the Tanzanian material used to be brought and were kept in Kenya until actually, I think, if I'm not wrong, until the 70s. So I don't think there was rivalries. I think there was a pretty good relationship with the Kenyan being good custodians of material, and when they were asked to return it, it went back.
Was there kind of regional collaboration?
Unfortunately, there hasn't been a regional collaboration. I think, and you'll see this in the last part of our discussion today. I think apart from Richard and Meave's team, most of the paleontology until fairly recently was done by European and Americans, and it was essentially a scramble for Africa, with people carving out areas. There were great rivalries between groups. So it wasn't, unfortunately, it has not been characterized by a great deal of camaraderie and collaboration across. But I think that this new generation is starting to change that. We now have an East African Paleontological Association that brings together people from paleontologists and paleoanthropologists from Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Kenya, and also from other parts of the world. And frankly, I would like to see more. I'd like to see more for scientific reasons. So, for example, the Turkana Basin and the Lower Omo Basin are part of the same basin. And so you'd think that if we want to properly understand the evolutionary history of mammals in that region, that we need much more intense collaborations between at least those two continents. So unfortunately, I don't think that we have as much collaboration as we see, and we've inherited ourselves the enmities from our past colonial masters. I'm sorry to say.
Cheryl Weinstein asks, at some point, I think probably in the news lately has been a lot about new types of humans in Southeast Asia. Could you comment on that? Sometime I don't know, now or later. I know it doesn't quite exactly fit into the story you're telling, but how does it relate?
We start off with humans that are short-statured, small-brained, definitely members of the genus Homo, back in 2 million years ago. And then they get replaced about 1.5 million, at least we thought they got replaced at about 1.5 million years ago when we had Homo erectus. And from then on, we had much larger statured members of the genus Homo. So both at the Flores, small members of the genus Homo, and then also Homo naledi are kind of a surprise. But we shouldn't be surprised because we tend to, evolution didn't work the way we thought it should work. And that things don't go extinct the time we thought they went extinct. So we really shouldn't be surprised. So the way I approach the fossil record is that I don't understand the full diversity of form and function until we have properly sampled the time periods. And so that's why we always seem to be caught by surprise, because we tend to think that the present is a good representation of what the diversity and disparity could be like. But I think we have to remember that 90% of the forms that existed have since gone extinct. And so we should expect to find way more diversity, way more interesting things in the fossil record than we see in the present.
And we just haven't looked at that thoroughly.
Yeah, no, we have not. I mean, so it tells you that there are many, many, many more surprises waiting for us, that we're not done yet. I mean, because sometimes there's this notion that, hey, you guys are finished. There's no more to be discovered. I'm just, wow, you gotta be kidding. Post-independence, and I think this has been mangled up, it should be from 1963 to the 2000s, so pardon me. And so this period then ushers in the time when Richard Leakey was recruited first by his dad to go travel up to the Omo on the first Omo expedition, and then discovering the existence of fossil deposits on the eastern side. And people had been aware of the existence of fossils sites on the western side of the lake for quite a while. But no one had, until no paleoanthropologist until Richard went out there, was aware that there were fossils on this other side as well. So with this discovery, Richard abandoned the Omo expedition, managed to convince the National Geographic to give him some money. And they sort of, what is this young abstract high school dropout know, and sort of to just go away money, leave us alone. They gave him some funds. And of course, as they say, the rest is history. So a lot of what I want to talk about as far as contributions, major contributions in post-independence period, we owe to the work that Richard pioneered. And as we all know, Richard is a Kenyan, was born, bred in Kenya. He just looks white. He's not really white. He's as Kenyan as Kenyan gets. And but he is the first person to tell you that the discoveries that they made was made possible by the teams that he built, both his wife Meave and one particular person that was critical in organizing and running expeditions and also discovering fossils was Dr. Kamoya Kimeu, who was recently honored with a honorary doctorate from Case Western. I'm glad to say, no, about 3 months ago. a really spectacular fossil finder, a great scientist, and just a good person to know. And so teaming up with Richard, and Richard was joking the other day that when Kamoya was getting his honorary doctorate, he said, well, who'd have known that 2 high school dropouts would both get honorary doctorate degrees? So they've done a lot. They've done a lot to put Kenya on the map. Richard's work, as I mentioned, actually started off in the Omo, where he discovered 2 skulls of early humans, Omo 1 and Omo 2. And the dating was uncertain until recently. And I would still contend that they're the most securely dated now fossil of early humans at 190,000 years. And when he discovered them, he was excited. He brought them back to his dad, Louis. And Louis looked at him very disappointed. He said, I sent you to go and find early hominids. I didn't send you to go find humans. So, he was expecting his dad to be pleased. No, he wasn't. But anyway, so he turned his attention to Kenya and focused in the Turkana Basin, and has just made, together with Kamoya and team, they just made some of the most amazing discoveries. And I just want to highlight a few. Again, I know you all know of them, but let's look at a few of them. There's this famous Paranthropus, or what is sometimes called Australopithecus boisei skull, KNMER46. That is the same species as the one that was found in Olduvai Gorge, OH5. Then in the 1970s, there was the discovery of the first really good skull of the earliest member of the genus Homo, which is has been named Homo habilis, originally found named from specimens from Tanzania. But there's a pretty squashed up specimen. This was a much better preserved specimen, and had a striking increase in brain capacity because so, for example, the Australopithecus africanus and Paranthropus have a brain capacity that is about the size of maybe an orange, about 450 cubic centimeters. And these things have got a brain capacity that is about almost 2.5 times that. So that was a major increase in brain capacity. And this is one of the iconic finds. This is, I think, probably the find that defined Richard's legacy. And then there was 1813, which is thought to be a female member of the same species. And then there was, soon after, in 1975, the discovery of Homo erectus cranium, KNMER3733. But I would also like to highlight that there were not only craniums, but also fauna. And that's important. We need to have the fauna and the flora in order to be able to know what type of environments our ancestors lived in. Here, for example, is this spectacular excavation of this extinct elephants called Elephas rekai, and just really an amazing specimen. It's still out there in display if anybody wants to go and see it. So by the time, I think at the moment, the total number of specimens that have been at the museum, in the museum collection, that have been recovered as a result of the work of the Kubifora Research Project number about 50,000 specimens. So that's a spectacular haul of specimens, without which we really will not be able to understand just what was going on in this critical period of human evolution, running from 4 million years ago up to about 500,000 years ago. So again, here's some close-up of those cranii. Again, there is 1813, And again, to give a shout out to the Kenyan fossil hunters that have been working with Richard, without whom we would not have found these fossils. This particular specimen was found by Kamoya Kimel. Then there is the, that's 1813. There is the Turkana boy, also found by Kamoya Kimel. 1980s, there was the discovery of the black skull that was put in a different species of Paranthropus, that's Paranthropus ethiopicus, dated at 2.5 million years. And then in 1984, Kamoya Kimel again discovered perhaps one of the most spectacular early human fossils ever discovered, and that is the Turkana boy. And as the story goes, that Kamoya was, it was the end of the day, almost the end of the season, and Kamoya was, at the end of the day, he was just wandering around, and he saw a piece of a bone about the size of a matchbox. And because he's that good, he could tell that it was hominin, and he could tell that there probably could be more of it out there. So he called Richard, and he told him, I found a hominin. He said, what did you find? I found a little piece about the size of a matchbox. And Richard reluctantly came. They started putting an excavation, and they weren't finding much. Richard wandered off, and then they started finding things. And I joined this excavation on the second year, and I'm very, very proud that I was able to participate in the recovery of the Turkana boy. Of course, I was very green at that end. At that time, I didn't quite understand the significance. To me, it was just another interesting fossil. Then we swing on to the 1990s. Richard had then turned over the running of the Kubifora Research Project to Meave and Louis Leakey, and he entered Politfast. He went to head the wildlife services, and then he went into politics. And the work continues, and the discoveries continued apace. Amongst them was this specimen from a site called Kanapoi KNM KP29281, which until the discovery of Ardipithecus ramidus from Ethiopia was perhaps the best, the oldest specimen that we knew of that clearly had distinct features that we could say, well, we could say this thing was bipedal. Yeah, but also we knew that it was a different species from Lucy, so predated Lucy by a few several thousand years. And then there was a discovery of KNM WT 4000 from Lomekwi, and this is this skull called Kenyanthropus platyops. And recently, I think there was that confirmation, because there was a big argument about whether it was a valid, it was so distorted, maybe it wasn't a valid species. But I think the recent discoveries from Ethiopia by Johannes does confirm that indeed it is a valid species. And the interesting thing is that the site where this specimen was found is also the site where the oldest, or what we think are the oldest stone tools, were discovered a little later on. And then into the 2000s, we had the discovery of another cranium of Homo erectus, KNM ER 42700. And then for a long time, we've always known that Acheulean hallux had to have evolved, have to have been made fast in Africa, but until the discovery in 2007, the oldest Acheulean hallux were about 1.5 million years old, and until there was this discovery in 2007 of Acheulean dated at 1.76. All right. And so if you just if you put them all together, So these are the how from the Kubifara Research Project. There are 8 scouts and a complete or almost a complete skeleton. It's nothing to sneeze on. This is an amazing discovery. And I think that the Kubifara Research Project, the Leakeys, deserve every accolade that that they get. I mean, this is just, it's not just luck. It's our organization. It is being able to inspire people. It's being able to lead. And so it speaks for itself.
Bernice Kleiman has another really great question. Why do you believe that most of these finds you're talking about are in Kenya and Tanzania? Now, I mean, I know that you're talking about Kenyan and, to some extent, surrounding area fossils, but why don't we have a huge set of fossils from Ivory Coast and South Africa? Maybe we do.
Right. Yeah. So I just want to remind everybody that the fossils from Kenya are just part of the story. The story would be chronically incomplete without fossils from Tanzania and without the fossils from Ethiopia and this fantastic work. So today I just wanted to bring everything that has been found in Kenya to remind everybody, because typically people talk about one fossil because there's so much to be said about one fossil. So I just wanted to talk about this one fossil from Kenya, this group of fossils from Kenya. So yes, there are fossils from South Africa as well. There's fossils from Chad as well, but not so much from West Africa. I think this is just what I call geological serendipity. It's a combination of these places were inhabited by the ancestors, but you also have the ideal conditions to be able to preserve them, ideal conditions to be able for them to be eroded out. And the major feature that seems to explain why we have so many fossils in East Africa is the Great Rift Valley. That all this rifting has been good for creating low-lying areas where lakes and rivers can form and sediments can accumulate. They have created conditions where those very same sediments, because it's such a tectonically active area, you get all this faulting, and you get the reverse process where these layers, which otherwise would still be buried way deep down the ground, are brought to the surface and we can find them. So it could very well be that there are fossils in West Africa, but because of the absence of the rifting, they're still buried deep. Or they could be in the rainforest in the Congo, but because of the fantastic forest cover. Although I know that there are some places where you have forest cover or you've had fairly good vegetation, but you still find fossils. So I think it's just the lack of the tremendous tectonic activity that you have in this area that leads to the preservation and also the exposure. As we move into the 2000 and beyonds, I think that one of the major developments is that you've had the search for the origin of humans in Kenya and in other parts of Africa expand to bring in other researchers. So it's not only the Kubifara Research Project and the Leakeys that are involved in this search, but other people have also joined into this project. So the enterprise has expanded. And in Kenya, the people who have joined, people who have been mentored by Richard and Meave. So thanks to Richard and Meave, we have people like Dr. Manti Chalo, who is now the Director for Sites and Monuments at the National Museums of Kenya. He's been working at two sites. He's been working first at Kanapoi and now the site called Domeri, which is right on the border with Ethiopia in the Elemi Triangle. And their work there with Carol Ward and Mike Pravkan from 2012-2015. They published a paper that just tremendously increases the sample of Australopithecus anamensis that we have, including partial maxilla of a juvenile. I think it's the only juvenile of anamensis. So I just want to give a mention to the work, the fantastic work that that Dr. Manti is doing, and also with encouraging or popularizing these areas in paleoanthropology in schools. He has started a club, a prehistory club, that is getting a lot of young Kenyans interested in these disciplines. I also want to highlight the work of Sonia Hammond, who has an appointment at the CNRS in France, and is also at a faculty at TBI at Stony Brook. And she, along with one of her field assistants, Sami Lokorodi, are responsible for the discoveries of this earliest known stone tools, which were the subject of a Nature cover a few years ago. Dated at 3.3 million years, these fossils predate the what was then known as the earliest stone tools from Ethiopia, I think at Ghana, which were dated about 2.6 million years. And these are at 3.3, and they are so different in style and size that they decided to classify them in a different industrial complex that is known as the Lomekian. You know, so that's this is you know, I remember when I was studying graduate school that 1.5 million years for the origin of stone tool was considered to be revolutionary. Then this is now almost twice that. And there is, it gives us, well, I think one of the things it opens up is the possibility that the use of stone tools or the use of tools or stone tools actually might go back even further. So I think that people are now beginning to look in the Miocene, in the late Miocene for, so there's a race to push back this date. And I have no doubt that it will be pushed back. And then back to apes. There's a lot of work that has been going on in the Turkana Basin with the apes, starting with the work that I've been doing since 2013. And here is a video of this excavation in 2014. We've just finished after 3 hours of work with John Ekusi on my right, fossil finder extraordinaire, and really just one of the greatest people that you could imagine, and really a fantastic morphologist. I mean, this guy can pick up fossils amongst rocks that he has no business finding, and I just got to say that he is a special person to work with. This particular specimen he found at the end of the day when we'd been finding nothing, and he pulled out a cigarette to start smoking a tobacco cigarette. We chased him away, and the next thing we know is that he discovered a fossil. So now I'm sorry, but I encourage him to smoke from time to time. So. And I think I've shared this with you before, but it's always worth sharing this again. This is the skull of Alessi from the site called Napodet in Turkana, dated at about 13.8 million years. We took it to the ESRF, the synchrotron scanning facilities in Grenoble, and we are able to peer in, see what's in the inside, and the preservation of the structures in the inside is just spectacular. We have the semicircular canal and the cochlea preserved on both sides. We have all the unerupted teeth preserved in pristine conditions. We have the tiniest bone in the body, the middle ear ossicles, the magnus, incus, and stapes are preserved in spectacular condition. In fact, in one side, they're still in, I'm told that they're still in the original anatomical position. We can digitally slice through the teeth and count the growth rings and be able to estimate the age of death. But not only that, we can follow the growth pattern of each of the teeth in great detail. So it gives us an understanding of the dental sequence, dental development pattern in amazing detail. And this is the first time that this was ever been done on a fossil. And we have about 2.5 terabytes worth of data and 8 people who are now involved in reconstructing as much of the paleobiology in a single individual as we can reconstruct, including diet, balance, movement, hearing, acoustic sensitivity, and growth and development. The last thing I want to talk about is what the future portends, where we're going. With TBI, we now have 2 field research facilities with the capacity of hosting on either side of the lake up to 20 to 25 researchers at a time, 50 students at a time. We have field vehicles, we have food, we have field assistants. Somebody can arrive today and tomorrow they can be gone in the field and start their field work. We have curation space. We have trained curatorial assistants. We are set up to really get going on paleontology, but not only on paleontology, but facilities are also available for people who want to do research in other areas as well. And there are many other areas that are interesting. One of the most interesting things in the East African region where Turkana sits is that there's an amazing diversity of ethnic groups, of linguistic groups. There are over 20 different ethnic groups on either sides of the lake. The amount of genetic diversity, I believe, that you find in the Turkana Basin surpasses the entire genetic variation that you have in Europe, America, and Asia. There's amazing genetic diversity in this place. There are some really old pastoralist traditions. There are things that we can learn about genetic variation and adaptation to different environments. There are things we can learn about genetic diversity and adaptations and resistance to disease. There's just a gold mine. And so what we're doing is that we are teaming up with a group from the University of Pennsylvania, and we're going to establish a genomics lab at our facilities headquarters in Nairobi. The other thing we're doing is that we have raised funds to establish a micro CT scanning lab. And so I think that we are set up to just really bump up the types of research that can be done in Eastern Africa. And just to give you a measure of how the impact of the science that has come from Kenya and has come from the Turkana Basin, the research from just the Turkana Basin alone has been featured on the cover of Nature 12 times. That's not to count the Nature papers. This is just the covers. So I cannot imagine there's a single basin that you can go to. I don't care what area of risk science you're in, that can boast that level of scientific output. And we're just getting started, I think. But we can't do this without the support of the communities. The Turkana and Marsabit, people in Turkana and Marsabit counties are fantastic. I just got to tell you the story that we've been eating beans and rice in 2013 for a long time, and we bought a goat to end the field camp. And I went to sleep at night. I had a commotion. I woke up and I was told the goat escaped. And everybody was in a bad mood because now we're going to end the camp without a goat roast, which is a very important part of our camp rituals. And then these guys showed up during lunch and they brought our goat. They took it upon themselves to go and track the goat. I told this story at a Christmas party in San Francisco, but nobody was laughing, only to discover that there was somebody there who rescues goats. So I don't tell that story anymore. I hope there's nobody out there who's a goat rescuer, but we ate the goat. Now, so we're trying to bring in the locals into the research. TBI is doing things in such a way that benefits the locals. We provide employment to the local communities. We are including women. As you can see, these women work with us in the field assistants. We also have established a master's program. So going forward, what we'd like to see is real international research, because we believe very strongly that this is not Kenyan heritage. This is human heritage. This is for all of us humans. But as I always say, that the storytellers have got to be diverse as the diversity of the people whose story they tell. So we got to make sure that there are people in Kenya who are well-trained, because if you don't have people who are well-trained in Kenya and in Ethiopia and in Tanzania and in South Africa, who's going to take care of those 50,000 specimens that have been collected over 50 years? You can go back and get DNA, but you'll never go back and get 1813, or you'll never go back and get that Elephas reiki skeleton that I just showed you. This is the only one you're going to find. I mean, you'll find something else, but so you can imagine. So training Kenyans, training East Africans, training Africans, and making sure they are part of this, this enterprise is good for the science. It is going to ensure that the sites are preserved. It's going to ensure that the collections are preserved. So we have teamed up with a number of our colleagues, including Professor Patricia Princehouse here, to establish a unique master's program where instead of taking African students and bringing them to America and leaving them dazed and confused, like I was dazed and confused when I first came out here, we're keeping them in Turkana, and instead we're bringing the instructors, and we have partnered with a local university, Turkana University College. We've established the first Masters in Human Evolutionary program in Kenya. And it's just a fantastic program, I can tell you. The instruction is spectacular. The instructors are marvelous. And as you can see, and Richard has just been appointed the research chair for the program at TUC. We have 8 students. We're just about to graduate 2, including the first Turkana to get a master's degree, and we hope he'll proceed on to a PhD. We've also admitted a young lady from Turkana as well, who's just started her first year in the program. And we have funding from the French government, and I know that we're also going to get support from other sources. So this is the way forward. We're going to do research in a way that is diverse, and in a way that is inclusive, and in a way that is fair. Thank you.
The Origin Science Scholars Lectures are presented by Case Western Reserve University's Institute for the Science of Origins, with the assistance of the Siegel Lifelong Learning Program, the College of Arts and Sciences, and MediaVision. For more information on the Origin Science Scholars Program, including a full video archive, please visit the Institute's website at origins.case.edu.